What's up? I'm Winks. So I've been in ANCAP for a few months now. I wanted to make a video explaining my growth as a moral person as well as the experiences leading up to that epiphany moment. When I was a kid in my formative years, I didn't even notice the government structure at all. I was lucky enough to have parents that were fed up with the state school structure. My dad, who at the time was a teacher, was noticing a misallocation of the school's budget on things they didn't need. For instance, they bought video editing software and then couldn't afford their textbook. Also, to compensate for this egregious misallocation of resources, they fired a lot of teachers, despite having a large amount of attendance. As a result, classrooms got larger and teachers could not spend as much time with their students, and in some cases, not at all. So my parents pulled my older sister out of school and homeschooled us both. This isn't to say I was unsocialized with other kids my age, or sheltered, and many other insults that get flung at homeschoolers. I was a part of a homeschool group that met up every week and had small-scale classes and friends, and all the things that you would expect out of a public school. The difference is it's only one day of the week, and all the rest of the work is done in the comfort of your home, and it's a much easier way to digest the subject matter. My parents weren't very political. I'm more concerned about a stable education, our education, and getting us to church on time. In this structure, I never even talked about politics or government. It was all actual education, and kids talking about video games and social activities and things kids should talk about. No PC bullcrap. The first time I even saw a news station was I was about 12, I think, and it was at my grandparents' house, them being boomer conservatives. At the time, I thought it was very strange seeing a full-grown man acting like a child arguing with another person about how things should be done his way. Granted, I can't remember the context of what they were saying, but I saw the mannerisms of these supposed adults, and I, being much younger than they, saw the immaturity of it all. I pretty much lived in peace for most of my life, and I didn't even get pulled into politics until I graduated high school in 2015. For me, I was a bookworm. I read a lot of history books, especially early American history and United States Revolutionary history. So I was well versed in Jeffersonian limited government, despite not being involved in politics. It wasn't until I started going through government bureaucracies and trying to get my driver's license, my car and registration, getting a first gun, and getting agitated with these over-restrictive bureaucracies that I wanted to get involved and fix these problems. Obviously, during 2015, two of the worst candidates were running for president. Me, being the Jeffersonian I was, looked to the state and local level so I could protect myself on the local level from the federal level. So I did extensive research, I shook hands, I had conversations, and even did extensive background checks on people before I even considered campaigning for someone. When I found a candidate I liked, I started campaigning. I knocked doors, I walked thousands of miles, and I got more acquainted with people in my community. I'm still pretty proud of myself for the amount of effort I put into it, despite it all being in vain. I still made friends who believed in freedom, and furthered my knowledge on just how much government had grown. Much to my dismay, my candidate lost, even though it came very, very close. This made me slightly disenfranchised with the campaigning, but I still believed in the political process. During this downtime, I was looking for ways to spread the message of freedom and shrink the powers of government. Being someone who loved guns, I found open carry activists who did that very thing on YouTube. I began to learn of all the restrictive laws on the federal, state, and local levels. Even city ordinances will restrict some of this stuff. I also began learning about all the laws surrounding police encounters, specifically Terry stops, detainment, and arrest. Also, I learned when to give identification to an officer when he has reasonable suspicion or probable cause, i.e. the Fourth Amendment. Basically, open carry activists inspire all around them the message of freedom despite government tyranny. It's also an opportunity to re-educate cops who are not trained to respect citizens' rights, because either they listen to reason and respect the activists' rights, or They steal the activist property, i.e. disarm them and take their ID, and get it all caught on camera, arrest them with bogus charges, and then the police officers will be reprimanded afterward. Now, seeing activists get arrested with these bogus charges drove me over the edge. These blue line thugs were enforcing their will instead of the law. Because I was watching these videos, I got a recommendation in one of Minister Dapperton's videos, and so I watched the video even if I didn't agree with anarchy at the time, but I still enjoyed the content. Now, I also started watching more of his content as well as others like him. I already wanted a free market, but I didn't realize to the extent of which the market was regulated today. And as I became more educated about economics from the ANCAP community, I began to agree with every single point they gave. Although, admittedly, rejecting intellectual property was hard though. Also, as I became more educated on the non-aggression principle, self-ownership, and the natural law, which I was already aware of as a constitutionalist, I wasn't convinced enough to want anarchy. Despite all the facts, logic, and principles, I simply could not embrace anarchism. Even if I agreed with all of it on some level, I could never see an anarchist society emerge and thought of anarchy as a utopian ideal. One day I was watching one of Hoodie videos and he was debunking a socialist, and he was going through the video point by point, debunking it with logic and economics. Afterwards I was kind of wondering, why do socialists and Marxists always still advocate for socialism even though it's been proven multiple times that it will never ever work? And the answer is clearly obvious. When they say that's not real socialism, they mean to say that's not the way they would implement socialism, and they would, if they were the one that was in control, they would bring the utopia. A complete narcissist. I then had the self-reflectional thought, why do I advocate for a constitutional republic? The founders knew that rights were inherent to humanity and were given to us by God, and wanted to preserve those rights from each other because man has the potential for evil. Though the Anti-Federalists tried to restrict government to specific powers and control, the government has grown to even farther and tyrannical and more powerful than they ever could have imagined. And in this moment, I had the epiphany, and I realized that no amount of restrictions will stop the tyrannical power of the ruler. So perhaps instead of limited power, perhaps we should remove the throne and position of power altogether. And in this moment, I realized that no form of government can work, and that I was the one advocating for utopia. And in that moment, I realized I wanted the same thing as the socialist. If I had complete control of the government, I would limit its power so much, and I would make it absolutely perfect, making it to my preferences rather than doing the right thing and throwing it away. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.